IFCI is down 14% plus at 30 rupees. That's a 5 rupee cut. Biggest volume traded stock. Fierce selling on that one. The reason is the government taking full charge at IFCI. It's converting its optionally convertible debentures of 923 crores back into equity, and it will control by the end of it almost 68-69% in the company. Mr. Atul Rai is CEO and Managing Director of the company. He's joining in right now this morning. Mr. Rai, good morning, sir. Great to have you with us here. Appreciate you could take out time. How should we read this, sir? How should we read the move of the government taking full control at IFCI, especially in the backdrop of what happened recently? And we discussed that when you were reappointed as the CEO and Managing Director.
Good morning. First of all, let us look at the decision which has been taken yesterday. I have not seen it formally, but whatever I have gathered is that the government has given approval to conversion of the two instruments amounting to 923 crores into equity of IFCI at par. Now, from the perspective of any financial institution, having the government as a shareholder is a source of strength. Rating agencies will view it favorably. RBI will also view it favorably. So, of course, there is the question that for years together, when IFCI share was available for maybe 2 or 3 rupees, the government would have had a better opportunity to convert even below par.
Yes.
Be as it may, I think this is a recognition of how well this company has done over the last 5 years, that we have a willing and a very strong shareholder or looking at acquiring shareholding in this company. Personally, for me, I started out my career in the government, and one can think of a homecoming, if that is the way to put it. However, having said this, the way it actually works itself in IFCI would still need to be seen from the perspective of 75% of the shareholders who are not related to or directly controlled by the government. As of today, around 25 or 26% of the shareholding is all that the public sector institutions have. As for the rest, they would, as I said, have to determine the issue of the strengths of having government as a shareholder, which I just pointed out, from the perspective of giving strength to the balance sheet of the company, and how would their own investments fare. So I wouldn't be able to prejudge it. I think the best way to take it forward would be, once I am in receipt of the formal decision of the government, I would like to, and I would perhaps have to take it to the shareholders to know what their mind would be after the board has looked at it. And it would be, I think, thereafter that one would be able to actually say whether between the advantages that government as a shareholder offers to IFCI and the issue of the other shareholders wishing to protect their own shareholding and degree of, let us say, stake in the company.
Yes.
What would be the
right
outcome?
Right. Mr. Rai, have you heard from any of these rest of the 75% shareholders? Because the government essentially is diluting everybody, right? By doing this. They've got the right to do it, but everybody else gets diluted. Minorities, other institutional shareholders which are not public sector financial institutions. Have you heard from anybody? That's my question.
I think, first of all, let us look at it a little more closely. I don't think that the law of the land is the one which would allow any entity to convert at par. That is the default situation. So, therefore, there would be the issue of what should be the right price. This comes in after the ability or the claim of the government has been confirmed in the sense that there are two instruments in question. The first instrument is rupees 400 crores as optionally convertible debenture with the government.
Yes.
But it has a right on the part of IFCI to prepay the amount to the government.
Yes.
And as you would probably know, this amount has never come to IFCI. This amount has been reinvested in 9.75% bonds of the government. So the question is that whether IFCI would like it to see converted, shareholders would like it to be converted, and then claim 9.75% interest from the government on what they have invested. Then, as I said, there is the right that we have of prepaying it. So I would also have to see whether, as I said, if the shareholders want the government as a shareholder, and whether they would like to have that bypassing their right to convert. The other instrument of rupees 523 crore, I have maintained earlier as well that this instrument is still to come into existence from the company law perspective, because the shareholders have never approved issue of this instrument. There is a communication from the government which of course articulates the belief of the government that they do have these optionally fixed convertible debentures. However, these instruments cannot be a matter of presumption alone. They have to be negotiated through the shareholders, and of course we can allot it today, that there is no problem about that, but it would have to be seen as to what the shareholders have to say about it. And I think only now that the decision is available, there is an occasion to have this consultation or consideration first in the board and thereafter, if necessary, in the shareholders meeting.
No, so what you're saying is the government converting this 930 crores back into shares would be considered by the board, by the current board, and they would have the right to decide. Is that what you're saying?
As I said, the first instrument of 400 crores has a right on the part of IFCI to prepay.
Yes.
So that right can be exercised, and I think then the right of the government to claim conversion would get extinguished or would get satisfied.
Yes.
So there would be no surviving claim
thereafter
for conversion.
Right.
And on the 523 crores, as I said, these instruments have not come into existence. That is the fact of the matter. If they have not come into existence, I think it will be little difficult at this stage for me to say that whether the claim of conversion can be a claim which has to be entertained only on the basis that government has so decided, without taking into consideration what the shareholders might have to say, what even a minority shareholder might have to say on this subject. Because this disturbs, perhaps, from their perspective, what their equity in the company is.
Okay, so my question then is, and the viewers and your shareholders who are watching, sir, the question is, what is the road ahead? Are you going to prepay that 450 crores back to the government? Do you have the money to do that? Will the board stand for it? And second, what happens to 523 crores? Because the government has issued, the cabinet has cleared the proposal to convert both these tranches back into equity at par. The cabinet has already cleared that. Yeah. And it is very clearly saying it's a government company. It was set up as a government company. The character of the company is like a government company. IFCI has got monies which at attractive rates because of that claim of it being a quasi government company. I mean that's the government's claim. So what happens from here?
That is a lot of questions. First of all, let me say that there are two aspects of how IFCI shareholders would be entitled to view the government in. The first is the government as a sovereign, and the second is government as a counterparty to the claims which are being considered for conversion today. So I think this distinction would need to be made, or would be required to be made by shareholders. What they decide, as I said, I will not be able to preempt that decision.
Right.
I may have at most the role of bringing all the facts into the picture.
Right.
So I think that
Rai,
as of today,
Mr. Rai, who decides? Who decides?
As I said, the instruments of debt which have convertibility with them
Yes.
can be decided with the approval of shareholders in a general meeting. And it cannot be decided as per company law, it cannot be decided by the government as a sovereign. That is the part. Of course, government can make legislation, government can take special recourse
Yes.
to the provisions of company law in this regard. Those possibilities must be encountered and be considered.
Right.
At the same time, the contractual position is that the conversion or even the bringing into existence of the optionally fixed convertible debentures of 523 crores cannot happen without the general body meeting of the shareholders approving the same.
Right. So, sir, with what has transpired, when you were reappointed at the board, I mean, this is not a pleasant exchange between you and the government, right? To put it bluntly. I mean, this is a bit of a standoff, a face-off, if I can use those words. Will the government act as a sovereign? Or, as you said, will it essentially say, as a shareholder, essentially, in that case, they'll have to go back to shareholders to get the approval? Or it will go back to and fall back on the provisions of the company law, etc., which allow it to do what it is doing? One would assume the latter rather than the former.
That is, I think, an interpretation which you certainly can make, but I would not be making this interpretation because I also think that I would, as a managing director, have the two responsibilities of honoring whatever claims IFCI has made to any stakeholder, including the Government of India, and certainly the Government of India, if it is one of the stakeholders, at the same time trying to present the position as it evolves from the shareholder perspective. So I think this is a situation which is not over or which has not been concluded by the decision of the cabinet. It is certainly clear on what the government desires, but whether when these additional facts and considerations are brought into the picture, whether the government would continue to maintain that. And I think here again there might be, these are my surmises, my hopes and beliefs, that when the government is looking at disinvestment, when for 20 odd years there is a stated principle in the fiscal and monetary policy of the country that, financial institutions should be allowed increasingly in the non-government sector as well,
right,
provided of course there is a fit and proper criteria and so on and so forth. So right, I think it will be in some ways government proceeding with the decision in the way that the decision has been taken right, would need to be seen by what other alternative considerations are important to the government from the perspective of policy.
Yes. So, I mean, you're being, I must say, very charitable to what is transpiring right now. Some people that who track the company tell us that this is nothing but simply a move to, to get Atul Rai out of IFCI. Because they failed the first time out. The government has got 2 nominees on the board of the company, sir. And I think with the reappointment, when you were reappointed as the CEO and managing director, the government nominees essentially voted against that, right? But still, you had the board with you and you were reappointed. So this move is nothing but to get you out of the picture. How would you respond to that?
I think I did have the board with me. There was a dissent from a government nominee director. These are things that are perhaps on record. They have been in the press. That is, of course, true. I think at the same time, there was a performance of IFCI over the last 5 years. There is the precarious character of NBFCs in terms of the business and operating environment. And I think it was all these things which would have weighed with the board of directors in opting for continuity. There are 2 government directors, but as far as I understand, there is only 1 note of dissent. So I would say that to conclude therefrom that the government had an unequivocal stand on my continuity in IFCI would also not be fair. As far as my being charitable is concerned, I think one has a job or a task today to manage this company which has come out of almost 15 years of hibernation, if that is the word, but perhaps the word which would have described IFCI in 2007 would be much worse than that, perhaps a comatose kind of condition. So that is much more important than looking at opportunities to score a debating point or even to be swayed by completely, let us say, personal considerations of what director or which director did what in the board meeting.
No, absolutely. But the reason I asked that is not to score a point and debate, but very simply to get to the reasons behind the disagreement of government nominees. And the narrative goes like this, that you were opposed to the government asking IFCI to restructure some large infrastructure loans. And hence, they are very displeased with you. You used to steadfast, and that's the reason why the government nominees were against your reappointment as IFCI's chief. I mean, those are important issues. That's the reason why I put that question to you.
As I said, any financial institution has to be in a negotiating posture with respect to all business propositions, and government, of course, has to be considered as this is something that we have to recognize all the time. This is the first financial institution of the country, set up in 1948, and I think we have never tried to convince ourselves otherwise. Within IFCI, and that again you have to take my word for it, we tell ourselves that we are an entity in the private sector with public sector values. So these are things important to us. Of course, there could be occasions when there have been differences. I have always made myself available to any negotiation, any discussion on anything to do with IFCI. If there is some such, I would say, rancor or some such vindictiveness, I think government is a very large entity.
Yes.
Government is an entity which is in trust of, I would say, public faith. I don't think it would be fair for me to presume that all this would have happened only to bring out, let us say, vendetta against Atul Kumar Rai. And I have mentioned it before. It is very, very easy to get rid of Atul Kumar Rai. All you need is a board resolution. All you need is a resolution carried by the general body meeting, instead of which one has had to look at certain unseemly aspects of sovereign power, like CBI, like police, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
But as I said, all a part of the game. On the other hand, it gave me a unique opportunity to be here at IFCI and be in part of that endeavor which rescued it from the brink of disaster. So I've had my payoffs, and I cannot be complaining at the end of 5 years that I have been treated unfairly or injustice is being meted out to me today. This move by the government is also not a move to remove Atul Kumar Rai. That will be something which perhaps may follow, and as and when that happens, we will have to see what is to be done about that, if that is what is in the interest of the company, and so on and so forth. But as of now, I said that it could be considered for me a second homecoming.
Yes.
And an opportunity to kind of bring whatever I can as a financial institution to the development of infrastructure, to the development of industry, and to development of myriad other things that we do by way of institution building, like MDI or Institute of Leadership Development or Rashtriya Gramin Vikas Nidhi, and so on and so forth. So I think I would like to look at it that way and give not being charitable, but just being realistic.
No, absolutely. But will you fight back? You said it's possible. I mean, they're not converting because they want you out, but that might follow after the conversion. So what do you plan to do, sir? You're still the CEO and managing director of the company. What do you plan to do?
As of now, as I said, these are long-term issues which would have to be both considered partly by me at a personal level, and as I just mentioned to you, at a personal level, I have had a satisfaction which would not be available to many persons.
Okay.
On the other hand, as far as the company is concerned, the board and if necessary, the shareholders should take a view. There are, of course, very, I would say, ill-fated kind of headwinds at this point of time facing any entity in the financial sector. And if they think continuity is something that we should try to convince the government about, should the government want to change, first of all, that is something that they would have to take a call. And on the other hand, if this is coming in the way of, let us say, good relationship between government as a principal shareholder, as it might then become, and IFCI, I think they would have to take a call to let me go. But that's fine. I mean, I think the time is not come as yet. But since you've asked me the question, I think that is how it will kind of unfold.
Yes, my question was, what will you do? Will you move the court, sir?
I think this is something which I must say to you that when I am looking at the government, both in its capacity as a sovereign power, as a counterparty, I just meant to say that that is exactly what would be happening. I mean, if government is to be viewed as a counterparty and not as a sovereign, which it is not in this case.
Yes.
If it had to be acting as a sovereign, it should have passed a law.
Yes, then it will. Then it will go the legal way. That's what you're saying. If it acts as a counterparty,
I think that should it.
Yeah.
First of all, there is still scope with the government to consider this matter in the light of larger interest of shareholders, as well as its own policy on disinvestment, on promoting investment by private sector, and so on and so forth. But should that not weigh strongly enough, I think if the shareholders decide, they certainly have recourse to the courts to claim their own just rights and fair rights as a shareholder of IFCI.
Right.
And I do not think that I can rule it out.
Okay, got that, sir. I have two specific questions. If the move goes through, conversion move goes through as the government has said it will, what happens to the divestment, disinvestment process in IFCI itself? Should we consider the matter closed then, post the conversion?
Yeah, I think there you're right. I mean, there will be a temporary setback to certain things that we were about to do. One of our companies was all set for an IPO. We just got clearance after my reappointment on 18th of July. It came on 26th of July. So we were thinking that this would be an IPO which we could go ahead with. And of course, market conditions are tough. But we thought that with IFCI's institutional name, and presumably the kind of narrative that IFCI has stood for over the last 65 years or so, this IPO would go through. But I think I would be required to put my mind to other things at this point of time, and that certainly takes a back seat. That may not happen very quickly. We will have to look at alternatives there. As far as other disinvestment is concerned, I don't see any other company which is on the anvil as of now. But yes, I mean, if you wish to say that management time will be taken up by this existential matter, I think you're absolutely right.
Okay, I got that. My second question is, what will be the book value, sir, post this conversion of IFCI?
First of all, as I said, I have not been able to figure out as to how conversion can happen at par.
Yes.
How conversion can happen at all in an instrument of 400 crores where IFCI has a right to prepay the government.
No, conversion can happen. Conversion can happen at par. I mean, that can happen. But
how?
You convert it at par.
That is exactly what I am saying. It is not as unproblematic as we believe, because the other shareholders who have bought at 40 rupees today, or who have bought at 40 rupees yesterday, or at 100 rupees 2 years ago, you see, one has to look at how their equity is going to be affected and how they are going to view it.
No, but
so I will not be able to say that they will be very pleased.
No, I got it. They might not be pleased. People will be unhappy, but that does not stop the government from converting at par. They can convert it at par. I don't think there is a...
I don't...
Yeah.
What is the law on this question?
I don't think it is a matter of law. You can, is there you know, there might be, people might be unhappy because
there are regulations.
Yeah, go on.
There are regulations in a listed company as to how and at what price conversion can occur.
Okay.
Even if I take it on face value that conversion can happen and we decide to convert, I am saying this is not even something which is in management control to tinker or take liberty with the regulation, that conversion can only happen in terms of a formula which is well known to all of us, set in place by SEBI. So in a listed company, that is how conversion happens. The right to convert at par has to be interpreted as a right to convert at par in harmony with whatever the law of conversion is. So that takes care of the 400 crores. As on 523 crores, as I have maintained, this instrument does not exist so far.
Right.
First of all, it has to be brought into existence,
right,
and thereafter we will have to see that.
Okay, got that, sir. This matter certainly is not closed, so we're sort of heading into another one of those. Thanks very much, Mr. Atul Rai, for joining in and taking those questions very patiently. Appreciate it, sir. We'll track that story closely. The government exerting control, and there most certainly will be pushback from other shareholders. Mr. Rai not ruling out the legal route, of course, being extremely charitable to the government, saying the government conversion is not to throw him out, or not to replace him, but that's something that might happen post-conversion anyway. And of course, we'll have to see how and he's yet to decide how he's going to react to it. But that's a fairly reasonable sort of scenario to imagine at this particular stage, especially after what happened at the time of his reappointment, where the government nominees disagreed. I've got the management of State Bank of India